This video is to support you with facilitating Lesson 47 of the 5th grade Excel curriculum. This lesson is focused on dividing with fractions. As you jump into the lesson, you'll notice that it starts with and is really driven by all word problems today. So it's going to be important that students annotate the word problems to ensure they are getting the most critical pieces of information, and you should model that in this first example. So in this first example, we see that a race is 3 miles long, so that is important information. And there are water stations at every 3/4 mile along the route. So we want to know how many water stations are along the route. You'll see that this problem guides students in setting up the problem. So we're looking for the number of water stations, that is n. We're starting with 3 miles and dividing it into 3/4. And so that's why we set up 3 divided by 3/4. The students are then guided through steps for solving the problem, or they're multiplying by the reciprocal. I just made sure you can read for the second step that we always multiply the dividend by the inverse. And this problem, the dividend is a whole number. So you want to ask students, how do we write whole numbers as a fraction, so that they can be reminded that you write a whole, you can put a 1 under any number and make it a fraction. And then they're shown how to multiply by the reciprocal in order to get their answer. And this problem goes through a quick check so they can assess the reasonableness of their response. Then you're jumping into a second example. Again, a word problem that you want to make sure students are annotating. So here we're looking at a rectangular frame that is 2/3 foot long and has an area of 5/18, and they're looking for the width. In annotating this problem, I made sure to underline the shape so they knew it was a rectangle. That's critical. And the 2 pieces of information they have are the length and the area. And we're looking for the width. In the plan, it guides students through solving the problem. It might be helpful to remind students of what the formula looks like, because they're used to seeing this formula as area equals length times width, so that they can see why it makes sense that the width equals the area divided by the length. You're following the same steps where you're setting up your division problem and then multiplying by the inverse. And as always, students are writing their answer in simplest form. It is going to be really important as you go through these 2 examples that students are clear about, 1, how to set up the initial division problem, and that they then write the correct multiplication problem. Reminding them that the dividend, that is the first fraction, never changes, and the second fraction is written as the reciprocal. And they can always check their answers. So then students are jumping into practice. This first practice problem for them, their independent practice, is very similar to this last example. So just make sure students are annotating the problem. Here's a model here for how students can annotate it. And as you are circulating and supporting students, you are paying attention to 2 things before you look at the answer. You want to make sure that in addition to their annotations, they're using those annotations to set up the correct initial division problem, and that their equivalent multiplication problem is correct. Specifically, that they are writing the reciprocal of the correct fraction. So for each problem, that is what you're paying attention to. The correct division problem and the right reciprocal. It might be helpful for you to annotate all of the important pieces of information, because if students are setting up the wrong division problem, this will help you quickly give them feedback on where they might be making mistakes. So if we look at question 3, 9 pounds of clay is critical. He's using 3 pounds for each bowl. We want to know how many bowls. Just underlining those quick pieces of information is going to be helpful each time.